And hello, everybody. Welcome along another edition of the Cricket Badger podcast. And delighted to say today, joined by Gary Barwell of Warwickshire County Cricket Club. There's his full title across the bottom of the screen there. So I didn't forget it. Head of Sports, Turf and Grounds at Warwickshire County Cricket Club. Gary, good to see you again. How are you?
Yeah, very well. Thank you. Very well. Good afternoon to everybody. It's nice to be back.
It's been a funny start to the season. I mean, early starts these days, well documented. The championship starts, we play half the season, it seems, before the end of May. What kind of, at Warwickshire and obviously ground staff around the country, what kind of challenge is that to get a pitch ready for the start of April?
Yeah, I mean, to be quite honest, this year's been an even bigger challenge, really. But just before that, really, I started in county cricket in 1993, and players didn't report back till April the 4th. The first championship game that year was April the 28th, and the last championship game was September the 10th, roughly. I remember that 'cause my birthday around there. So, so obviously nowadays county championship cricket starts on April the 5th. I think it was this year, roughly that date. And obviously, if teams aren't going away, Warwickshire did. They went away, and the majority do, but some don't. We were training aside from March the 24th, 25th. And basically, we had a pre-season friendly, just looking at my calendar now, on March 26th. It's very early. The grass is still quite weak on the squares because we've finished so late in the season, sort of October. So it's not really had that time, to bed in and root development and all the things you want the grass to do to be strong pitches. Then the downside to that this year, which is what we're all suffering, a lot of people, a lot worse than I am in cricket. There's people flooding out their homes and stuff like that. So I'm not going to sit here a moment. But to give you some context, in 2022, the rainfall in Birmingham was 415 millimetres for the year. October the 1st, 2023 till March the 5th, 2024, we'd had 470 millimetres of rain in Birmingham. So we've had a year of the rain in a 6-month window, really. So, yeah, it's been its own challenges, but you deal with the cards you're given in front of you, and you sort of know what you need to get done. We've been lucky in some respects. We've managed to get all our games off that has needed to get off. I think we'd gone 8-8, although we missed parts of games just for weather and stuff. We managed to get all our games in for the first 2 rounds. We got our friendly matches in, which was good for the guys. But it is very local. There's a lot of ground staff out there I know that have been covering since late January, early February. And just, if the weather goes against you for that bit of bad luck just before the game, you could have, all that hard work could sort of be for, not say for nothing, but with very little reward.
How many times in a season do you think you actually look at a weather forecast?
How many times in a day, to be honest? Probably, I'd say I probably look at these 2 weather apps I look at. I reckon I would probably say I look at them 10, 15 times a day, generally, unless it's blue sky or cloud. Even then, you're still looking for the evening. You're looking, has anything changed? I look long range. I don't overly believe long range. I think 3 days is fair. I think anything else is a rough guide to roughly where you are.
I always think with weather forecasters, we can kind of do all sorts of great scientific things. We can put men on the moon and stuff, but we can't really tell with any certainty if it's going to rain in an hour's time, can we?
I'll be honest with you. We sort of joke in the tunnel with the boys, and we sort of have a little bit of a laugh of it. You sort of look up for what it's going to be for the next hour, and that's probably it is hard with the wind speeds and everything and stuff. I do feel we probably should have got it a little bit better by now. That there's a better way of forecasting weather. We generally track it across the Atlantic. It's generally coming from a similar if the jet stream's in a certain way. You can sort of tend to tell. Wind speeds are a bit of a hard one though, because if they go up or down, that stuff across. But no, generally, quite a few times a day. I think today I've looked at it about 6 or 7 times when it started to spit a rain with the second team game we've got at Edgbaston today. I wasn't expecting that. And then I was looking on the weather app and there was no rain anywhere in the sky around the Birmingham area, yet it was spitting of rain. So, yeah, we are where we are. We just sort of deal with what we can deal with, really.
I mean, ground staff, I imagine, or that the head ground staff talk to each other around the country. You have meetings and things, don't you? The Worcestershire ground, which isn't that far away from you. I mean, you must be thanking your lucky stars you're not in charge of that, because that's basically you'd have web feet, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, we all speak to each other. We're all very much there for each other if we need any help or advice, or just generally there for each other, really, knowing what the other one's going through. To be fair, Steve and the people at Worcestershire, we obviously been a local club to Warwickshire, that you do know quite a few people, and Ashley Giles was obviously my director for a while here at Edgbaston. We've offered help to them if they need anything that we can help with, and Steve's took it up a while ago. It must be soul destroying. He's such a good groundsman. I know him very well. He's really working so hard. They've tried different things, but they can't beat nature and the floods that keep coming. I think I've read a stat. I don't know how I might be sort of lying, but I'm sure from 1885 to 2000 there was 9 floods, and all the floods have come in the last sort of 25 years. And I think they're into their 8th flood this year alone, or this winter period. So it does show you that, however climate change has changed, however that looks, and whatever people believe on that, there's definitely a climate shift, and weather patterns have changed, and they're more extreme when we get them now. So we just have to deal with that. And unfortunately, fortunately for us, we're in a good place where we are. Unfortunately, Worcester are in a really tricky place, because I think all round there gets flooded. I think the racecourse gets flooded and everywhere. So, but it's such a shame, because the ground staff work so hard, and again, for very little reward when the rain hits.
Used to be an annual occurrence, maybe not even that, where you saw that picture of the overhead picture of the ground at Worcester, and it would be an event almost. Oh, it's flooded again. But now it seems to be just underwater all the time. It was, as you say, soul destroying for the guys down there. In terms of the pitch preparation, though, Gary, it's not just like you don't just turn up a day before the match and think, right, well, let's roll this bit of grass. Do you? You kind of, this is an all-round job, all year round job, isn't it?
Yeah, I do think some people probably think I just turn up the day before, and I've always said if I won the lottery, I'd potentially just mark a pitch out under the hover cover and anything to it, and see what the next day brings. But just for sheer comedy value. No, to be quite honest, our pitch preparation, whichever way you want to look at it, starts probably from October the 1st, or whenever. An old bit of a cliche from one of my old bosses many years ago, last balls, but he was always going on holiday when the last ball's bowled. But pitch preparation generally starts the day the cricket season ends. All the things you've spotted in the year that you want to sort of iron out or change, or if you're happy with everything, you just you carry on in the same vein. So it starts probably October the 1st. That's your sort of main renovation period. Your scarifying, your top dressing, your seeding, your fertilising. And then winter time is more managing it. Is managing, not to go too far into it, but to manage the squares, keep the nutrient levels up in the grass plants, keep the soil as healthy as you can. Again, the weather's not helped us a lot this year. The plant's been quite dormant. And then you sort of go into the new year, and you then start making plans, your pitch plans, where games are being played, which matches are going to be on which pitch. And then from there, your grass is hopefully getting a bit stronger. Your fertiliser programs are all in place for the season. And then you start doing your preparation, which is probably early February for your first friendlies, in March, probably about a month out. And then probably your first championship pitches, about 25 days away. And then you gradually, your lead time into games gets less and less and then you probably get around the 14-day mark.
Okay.
But things do change. We had one this year. A couple of people commented and asked. We were going to play on pitch number 18. and then we're going to go on to pitch number 7 for the championship 2 games. We had back-to-back championships game, which is never easy. But I'd seen the weather forecast and how bad it had been. So we made a decision early on that our friendly pitch, that was pitch 20, was still a first-class pitch, and pitch 18, I could cover the run-ups together, which made a short boundary on 20. But like I say, it was, it's fine. It was a 50-yard boundary, but it was the case of, do I want play to happen for 4 days, or do I want to run up on the other side of the square that's not fit and we miss a day? I took the decision early on that, with the, backing of the club and everything, knowing the pitch was still true and good. So the pitch plans do move around a little bit for situations. We've got a second team game here today. We weren't supposed to have any cricket. It's just, obviously, it was quite wet weather up in Lancashire. I think it was supposed to be at Sale Cricket Club. Again, they couldn't host it because the weather's been so bad. So they asked if they could come back here. I'll be quite honest, it's not ideal with a game on Friday. But we've had a short boundary that's probably about 10 yards, I think, at one side. But it's more about the lads getting cricket. So it's been a bit of a funny start to the year like that. But yeah, pitch plans, they move, but they are very, everything we've been doing is geared up to games and game time, really.
You mentioned 20 pitches there. Is that how many strips you've got then across the?
There's 24 on the Edgbaston Square, but only 17 are first class pitches because of the size. It's a shame, really, because the other ones are first class pitches and they're good pitches. They just don't fall within the parameters of the 50-yard 50-yard boundary size. Now I do understand that obviously you don't want a silly boundary, but with the amount of cricket we host now, it is a challenge, if I'm being really honest.
I was going to ask you about that because you've got obviously second team there today. You got your first team, your championship, your one dayers, women playing cricket obviously more and more, which is great. You got the 100 team. You've got obviously finals day as well. It's a full-on summer, isn't it? You've got to kind of plan ahead, I guess, quite seriously. Yeah,
it's the problem is you want to it's a bit of a cliche, I suppose. You want to prioritise every game. Every game is as important for the team that are playing as the one before. People think, you could just go, right, I'll have a belting test match. I'll have a belting one day international, belting T20 finals day. Thanks very much. Everything's Edgbaston's great. Well, actually, the other teams are as important. It doesn't matter who's playing here. You're trying to do the best you can on any given day. The problem is it's really tricky to keep that level up all the time. Not making any excuses, but I'm good friends with Carl at Aston Villa, the head groundsman down there, who's one of the best in the Premier League. Villa Park looks absolutely amazing. But we often talk, and the things I notice, we try and do our outfield very similar. We haven't quite got the budgets for that, but that's what we aim for. But if Aston Villa played on Saturday, let's say 12:30 kickoff, I think it was played on Sunday actually at 3:00. Carl knows that nobody will be on Villa Park again until the next match. Maybe if it's an international, so it's a European game, maybe the night before. But generally, Premier League game, if it's a following Saturday or 10 days away, nobody's on Villa Park for 10 days, and he can go about his business, do everything he needs to do rightly for the pitch. If you look here, we played here. That people see it. We played here against Durham. So I look on my calendar. I think it was the 15th of April. From the 15th of April, we had 4 days, and then we had Central Sparks, which was a really good game. We then had Warwickshire women versus Worcestershire women on the day after, and then we've got a 3-day second team game. We then have 1 day in between, and we go straight into Notts 4-day championship. So our preparation time is non-existent. That's probably the biggest challenge.
With those 24 strips, then 17 obviously first class. Kind of when we're talking about cricket, we're going to a certain venue. It's going to be a batting venue. It's going to be a bowling venue, whatever. How much difference is there? I mean, can you see difference between the 17 pitches, or are they all Edgbaston standard kind of thing, all the same?
Yeah, I'd say mine are all pretty Edgbaston standard. I think I've got a sort of technique how I do my pitches. They generally look at draw colour. I'd say they slightly favour the bat over ball. I'd probably say, if I'm being honest, but I think I'd like to think they keep you honest. You know, if you bat, you get runs. If you bowl well, you might get wickets, depending on the ball.
And if you're preparing a pitch for a test match, or finals day, or whatever, do you prepare too? Do you have a reserve there just in case your first one deteriorates or goes wrong, or how do you play that?
Not really, if I'm being honest with you, just because we haven't got a spare as such. If we've got a game after, so like we've got, just having a look now, we've got the test match, and then about 3 days later, we've got a 100 game. Obviously, that's on a hybrid, so you won't be able to use it. Technically, the hybrid is sort of like, or not the hybrid, the 100 pitch is in prep. So you might have a bit of, you generally will know if something's not right about a couple of good week out, that you might be able to do something with it, I think, personally.
And if I was to say to you, right, you're a week away from a match, 4 days, 3 days, whatever, would you be able to be pretty certain what that ball's going to do on day one? Obviously, you can't kind of necessarily cloud conditions and stuff like that. Would you know how it's going to play?
It's a funny one. Me and Steve often spoke. I worked at Trent Bridge before Edgbaston, and we both said, well, he said he taught me, and actually it was fair. People used to say to me, "What's it going to do?" And I jokingly say, "I'll tell you in 4 days' time."
Yeah.
I can give you a rough guide of what I think it will do. So when I do all my measurements and my readings and how it looks, I can generally say I think it's going to do this. The one thing you can never allow for is a bowler that bowls out of his skin, or a batter that bats out of his skin. You know, in the first game of the championship year, would I have said, or well, for a second, Alex Davis would have got 254 here and played beautifully? Would I have said that on the pitch? Not really. I thought he should probably do a little bit more early doors. But then I can't. The biggest thing, and I've had this, you know, I saw Mark Butcher wrote something or did something on Wisdom Cricket podcast, and he said the biggest influence on anything is the pitch. I slightly disagree. I think the ball has a bigger influence on the pitch than the pitch has the pitch, if that makes sense.
That's one thing though, when you're talking to people that don't follow cricket and don't totally understand cricket, going from one ground to another, the assumption that, he's got naught today, it must be a bad pitch, whatever. The pitches and the balls don't really come into their thought process, because obviously, like a tennis court, it's a standard hard court or something like that. It's the same probably pretty much everywhere you go. Whereas local conditions, pitches and balls make a big difference, don't they?
Oh, massively. You know, at Trent Bridge, when I was there, you know, if there was a certain kind of day, it'd do a bit more for the bowlers. But then if it was a lovely sunny day, it'd be back town all day long and really true, really quick outfield. Again, you know, look at, you know, people say about the Ashes here last year, it probably could have done with being I'm not going to lie, probably a little bit quicker. If I'm being really cool, I could argue it went 5 days and it was a great test match. You know, but actually, if you look on day, I think it was day 3, on what most people would describe as a pretty flat batting track, and it was pretty true all the way through. It was actually 100 for 7. And if you remember, it was overcast and cloudy, and the clouds rolled in. There was heavy thunderstorms around the area. So I think you have to be very mindful of all the different conditions that you're going to be encountering. So yeah, I think the conditions. Very rarely do I read in places that the conditions have created the game to change, rather than I generally think if a bowler bowls really well and they've took 5 or 6 wickets, the pitch is doing a bit for them. Whereas I think if it's a flat pitch, it's a slow pitch, and the batter's got runs, I think sometimes we could probably give a bit more credit to the bowlers and the batters. And I think we do. And I'll be honest, you know, the last round of championship games and what we've been watching and interestingly witnessing, I think has proven to me that more evident than not that the pitches don't overly change that much.
Yeah.
The ball.
We'll come back to the ball in a second. How long after 11 o'clock can you sit there thinking, phew, everything's okay? do you kind of watch every ball? I imagine you're quite critical of yourself at times as well, because most people are, aren't they? But how long before you relax and think this pitch is all right?
How long? You can sort of generally get a feeling when you're watching it. I think mostly I like to, international is quite handy. You can go out at like an hour in because to repaint the line. So I generally will go out to do that, believe it or not, because I want to have a quick look. I think probably lunchtime I feel good if everything's going okay. I potentially, if I'm being greedy, I quite like 3 wickets a session. I'm always been a 300 for 9 for the day. I think everybody's a bit of everything then, if you've got a bit of that. I generally, one thing I'm quite good at, I'm really critical of myself because I just want to do well for other people watching the game, and I think the game deserves that. I think the only thing I'm quite good at is I'm quite good at analysing things rationally. So, when Jimmy Anderson comes out and criticises my pitch 4 days later, that's probably more disappointing than Stuart Broad criticising it in an evening after end of play, thinking, he's just saying it because he's coming out. I think I'm quite, like I say, certain match pitches you look at and think, I got that absolutely spot on. There's certain ones you think, I could have done a bit different. But then sometimes you look at it and think, well, actually, the game was an absolute belter. So that's what people are coming into. It sounds awful. You shouldn't be caring about what I'm doing. If the ground looks nice and the pitch plays well, if you've just seen Virat Kohli got 150 or, Johnny Bairstow score 100, back to back, and we win against India, or one of those kind of games that you just think afterwards, you think, wow, how good's that? That should be.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, the pitch is the stage for the entertainment. It's where the actors go on there and perform, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. And all you want to do is to do the game justice. The game deserves us to be honest and hardworking, which I'd say 100%. I'd like to think all the ground staff are like that around the country. And ultimately, you represent the people that pay their money to come and pay their 50, 100, 150 pounds to come and watch the game. They deserve that right that you work hard for them to get the stage. And that's all it is. It's a stage to watch some of the best players play. I mean, I've been lucky. I've been witness to some of the best players in the world over 30 years. So, and it's been a privilege, really. So, yeah, that's all we do is we try our best to get the best stage set for the players. The downside is it's a natural surface with natural environments, and it's not always as easy as you'd like it to be.
Gary Barwell, the guest on the Cricket Badger podcast today. We're going to take a very quick break, Gary. So thank you to the sponsors of the Cricket Badger podcast, manscaped.com.
Feel the difference with the superior full grooming trimmer by Manscaped. It's waterproof to use in the shower, features skin-safe technology to help reduce cuts, equipped with an LED light for those hard-to-see areas, and has long-lasting wireless charging. Order online at manscaped.com.
Thank you to manscaped.com for their support of the Cricket Badger podcast. Gary is with me today talking about all things pitch preparation, but we're going to move on to talk about balls in just a second, Gary. But first, before I do that, you mentioned, ground staff care about the job they do and they care about the pitch they have. I used to work at Yorkshire. I think I mentioned this to you last time you were on the podcast about Andy Fogarty, the former groundsman at Yorkshire, sleeping under the covers before a test match because he wanted to kind of make sure his pitch was all right the following day. It's a labour of love at times. I mean, you obviously get paid, but it's a labour of love, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think, I'm not sure if I'm right saying it's like a vocation in life that you take on. I think if you've got a passion for it and you care, and probably it's probably one of the big. Sometimes you could say it's your biggest strength and your biggest weakness is your passion and dedication. But you're right. I get paid for doing what I do, and I'm very lucky. The hundreds and hundreds of volunteers up and down the country that do it on a Saturday, or not on a Saturday, but in a weekday for the local clubs. They're really the ones that keep the game going, and my pitch is seen by millions and the pressure's on me and to deliver. But actually, it's as hard to do a club cricket ground than it is to do an international in some respects. But I know I love what I do. It is a bit of a labour of love, and I do sacrifice a lot in the summer. It's what I've always done all my life. I do question it sometimes when it's raining, or players are looking at a little bit of let's say wet bit on the edge of the outfield that you think, what you're doing. You think, if I go into work into football, I don't think they'd be doing that. But no, it is a labour of love, and I think there's a lot of people around the country, professional and amateur, that do it for the same reasons, really.
I guess the perfect week is you turn up on day one, the pitch is playing absolutely beautifully, the sun's shining, you can put your shorts on, you can sit in your deck chair and just watch 4 days cricket.
Yeah, that is the perfect one. But even with that, you still have worries. Always, you might have an area of the outfield that someone's dived on a couple of times and they're kicking at it, or a foothold, or there's something slightly in your mind that you're thinking, okay, prime example, Ashes last year, I'd probably say it's the happiest I've ever seen, the best I've ever seen the ground looking at Edgbaston. It was literally, the first pictures of it running in, and then Zach Crawley smashes the ball for 4, and you're thinking, hello, here we go, we're off and running. And day one, nothing but praise goes your way, and you're like, the best groundsman the world's ever seen. Day 2 evening, Stuart Broad said it's the slowest pitch he's played on. So the ups and the downs, the smooths and the, it is part of the job. It's I can smile about it, I can laugh and cry about it, and I'm ultimately very proud of what me and my team do. I'm always proud of, I'm proud of working at Edgbaston. It's a great club, and ultimately I'm a sort of, I say it a bit, people think a bit tongue in cheek, but I'm a bit of a custodian. I'm doing it to, hopefully, my end goal is that whoever takes it on after me, whether that's 2, 5, 10, 15 years, it's in a better state than I found it. And if that's 1% better, that's 1% better. I took over from Steve Rouse 13 years ago. I still chat to Steve a little bit now. I don't see him as much as I did. And I've hoped and taken it a little bit further than he took it from when he probably said the same when he was starting out. So that's what we do, ultimately.
How many people have you got in your team at Edgbaston? And there'll be a difference, won't there, I guess, between your winter staff, maybe into your summer, and then obviously for the big matches, you probably bring in a few more.
Yeah, so we've got 3 grounds now. We've got our training facility. We've got another ground at Portland Road. So I look after 91 pitches, 4 Astra pitches, 3 outfields, 1 AstroTurf ring round main grid Edgbaston. I think 3 partridges, 4 pear trees, and a couple of orchids, I think. But no, another net area at Portland Road. I've got 10 people in my team over those sites. They're all full time, a mix of ages from 20 up to 64, mixed abilities. All absolutely brilliant. I've got every member of my team has an extra really good layer to my team, whether that be young and keen and energetic to older, experienced and understanding, which is really good. And sometimes it's the other way around. But no, and then on a major match day, we probably bring in about another 6 to 10, depending on what the forecast is. Because the last thing you want is the ground staff to say, personally, we're going to be another half an hour. And you think, well, where's the staff? Generally, they're just cover helpers or volunteers. They come in, they'll bring the cover out, the match cover's on, and then we're off. And we can, nobody wants to sit and watch ground staff all day, really, do they? Let's be honest. And we'd soon be sitting.
You do yourself down, Gary. You find entertainment.
I mean, we want to be on if we have to come on, off if we have to come off, and everybody goes, "Oh, well done to the ground staff for getting us going as quick as we can." So that's ultimately what we try and do.
Do you think with cricket, obviously the rules are there for a reason, and it wants to be fair across the season? But I can remember Gary going to Chesterley Street. This is quite a long time ago, and got there nice and early. Absolutely chucked it down with rain, and it chucked it down with rain for ages, and the pitch was sodden. And the ground staff there worked their absolute socks off to try and get the pitch ready for whatever the cut-off time for a 5-over thrash about was. and you could see them making the progress around the covers. The kind of little corners were done, everything was done. There was one little bit that was left by the time they got to the cut-off, and they said, right, go home, everybody. There's a full house. All had to go home and claim refunds. Do you think there's, at times, I think anyway, there's probably scope for a little bit of common sense? Let's kind of leave it another 20 minutes and see if we can give the crowd something.
If I'm being honest, yes, I totally 100% agree. I think the problem you have, if I'm looking at it from two sides, is you sort of always have to have this fair for everyone. Remember being in county cricket when they first brought T20 in, and it's going back a long time. I think we'll say 2003, and you didn't have at the time. If it rained, you got an extra half an hour in most competitions. In the T20, you didn't, and everybody was coming out in the rain, and it was a hit and a giggle, and everybody was like flying around, and you'd be like, "What's going on here?" And it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant because you just take the covers off, it carry on raining, everybody was playing. About 2 years in, I think we had a bit of a wet spell one year, and they brought the extra half an hour in. And through no fault of their own, what it did, it made umpires a little bit more like, we'll give it half an hour. We've got to look after the players. And it's a really tricky one. The umpires are in such a no-win situation because they have to completely fair, but they also have to have the safety of the players at paramount, because that's ultimately what they're there for as well. I do worry that we sometimes forget that we're an entertainment business. So I think sometimes think to yourself, the lights are switched off at the ground lights can only go past a certain time here at Edgbaston, maybe say 11 o'clock, 10:30. But you know what? If you've got 25,000 in, and you look at it really honestly, and there's been arguments about we start at 10:30 for the county championship so we can get more game time in. Happy days. I'd happily agree to that. No problem. We're here anyway. But because it's traditionally people have to get to the grounds, and I think sometimes people don't break enough eggs to make an omelette. And I think sometimes you shoot yourself in the foot because of that, if I'm being honest, because I just want us to see us play. If you gave me an extra 5 minutes and said, right, we're going to play 5 overs aside, and all that hard work means that we're going to get a bit of cricket, well, that's what we're here for. But I also feel it's hard to, what's the best way to describe it, make it fair, because it has to be the same at Worcester, at Derby. Worcestershire don't have lights. So they could play a game that gets called off early because Warwickshire have got lights. That doesn't feel overly fair. So I think there is a bit of work to be done on it. I do totally agree. If you've got a full house, there's nothing worse than you're 2 minutes away from playing and you think,
it doesn't do the game any good, does it, to send off 25,000 people feeling unhappy about it? Yeah,
the game ultimately is the most important. More important than any of us, really. We talk about it, and we're involved in it, but ultimately the game's the one that we're trying to preserve and, really, really look after, to be honest.
I first met you, came across you in Abu Dhabi. You were out doing some recce work ahead of day-night test match, I think it was, wasn't it? And kind of saw how it all worked out there. Is Abu Dhabi your only away trip on research? Have you been anywhere else having a look around?
No, I haven't. I managed to get to Abu Dhabi, which was actually really nice. I really enjoyed my time there. The head groundsman was really, really knowledgeable. It did me the world of good, actually. I went to both Abu Dhabi and Dubai's cricket academy. I'd like to go out to maybe the World Cup in America. I'd like to see a bit of what's happening, what they're doing there. I really want to improve my skill set by seeing abroad. I'd like to just understand what they're doing, and I've tried to push a few buttons to see if there's any opportunity for me to do that, purely out of understanding, really. And I've got quite a lot of experience of the Commonwealth Games, 16 games in 12 days. That was really successful. I think we've been really successful here with our hybrids, and also taking our expertise over to there. So nothing's come of it yet. It's fell on deaf ears. So if anybody's listening, I'm more than happy to to come all over the world to have a look at cricket pitches if you need me. But no, that
passport will travel. I mean, one of the reasons I was coming to that was I just wondered if you'd ever been to Australia, because obviously the use of the Kookaburra balls in the first 2 rounds of the season has been much talked about, hasn't it, with the cricket that's been played. and being contentious. I would suggest with some Rob Key's come out and said he wants to see Kookaburra balls being played all the way through the summer. Other people saying it led to maybe some kind of fairly sort of steady cricket at times, and dour cricket in the sort of middle overs once the new ball was done and dusted. How did you see that? I mean, obviously, because in Australia, the conditions obviously maybe slightly warmer. The surfaces are a bit more abrasive. You get a reverse swing potentially later on that you might not get in April on an Edgbaston surface.
No, and you're 100% right on everything you've just said there. Actually, what's my thoughts on it? Yes, it wasn't the wickets that you get with the Duke's ball. I don't think the feedback here was there'd been absolutely brilliant pitches with the Duke's ball. There were still good pitches, but they were just very in favour of the bat, and the ball didn't last as long. You could hear it as much as watch it. You know, the carry was okay, but it was more of a thud on the bat than a crack on the bat. What's my thoughts on it? I always like to know, and in anything I do, is the reason you are doing it. So if you tell me this is the reason we're doing it, you know, whether that's, and people disagree and agree. If Rob Key says, actually, we want to make England cricketers better, and the best way of thinking of doing that is to use a Kookaburra ball all season, we know it's going to make for this kind of cricket, but we feel in the 2 or 3 years, if we trial it, our bowlers' skill levels will increase, our batters will have more time in the middle, and our spinners will be in the game. That is our end goal. I've got no problem. My problem is when we get an Ashes test match here, or test match, the Duke's balls come out, and Jimmy Anderson and whoever's bowling with him at the time come and bowl with the Duke's ball. I'm like, well, all the players that are really working hard with the Kookaburra in county cricket and getting little-ish reward or having to skill up or whatever, and then the moment you pick a batter that's got 2,000 runs by the time we get to the Ashes, you know, like Alex batted beautifully here, and he's done as well actually down at Hampshire with the Dukes, to be fair. Let's say he got picked for the test series, and the first test match he ever plays in, he gets a Dukes ball.
Yeah.
That's not an end goal for me, because actually you're moving the goalposts to fit what you want there. So if you are going to use the Dukes balls all summer, I think you do use a Dukes ball. And if you ask my honest opinion, what I would do, I would be now looking to develop a ball that is between the two.
Yeah.
And if you're telling me you can't do that, well, if you can produce a golf ball that goes further, or, you know, and all the things that you can do, man on the moon and all the things, it's pretty obvious that the Duke ball does a little bit too much. And you know, that first round of championship games with the Duke's ball, there was 58 wickets before 6 o'clock. Now, none of them pitches were really different to the ones around before much. You know, they weren't. You know, I know that looking at pictures and seeing and speaking to people. So you need to produce a ball that is the middle ground between a Kookaburra and a Dukes. And that's as simple as that for me. You know, I listened to Mark Butcher, and he was saying the other day, and a bit of a laugh with him, but he was saying the pitch changes. No, not the pitch. The ball changes on the pitch for me. And the Duke's ball stays harder and does more for longer, 30 overs. The Kookaburra lasts probably about 10 overs in the conditions we're at the moment. I know you're going to upset a few people, if I'm being honest. If you go with a Kookaburra ball for the summer, people will say the game's not very good, it's not watchable and stuff like that. And I've got no problem with doing that. But if your reasons are that you want to make Test cricket players better, we want to become number one in the world, we want you to see in 2 or 3 years the standard of county cricket rising so it's better. Well, if you've got to crack a few eggs to do that, then I'm not against it, as long as you've got your end goal in place.
I guess Rob Key would be. I'm speaking for him here. I do apologise, Rob. That if you know, Australia are on a fantastic batting track and destined for 750, but you've got some English bowlers that are used to bowling with the Kookaburra ball and finding a way to wheedle batters out and to kind of restrict runs and stuff. That's can only do England good on overseas trips in the future, because that's where England struggles, isn't it? Overseas trips in England would tend to do quite well.
Oh no, I totally agree. But let's go 5 years. We've been using the Kookaburra for 5 years for the next Ashes cycle abroad, and all of a sudden you come here and we get the Dukes out for the Ashes series here, the year or whatever, and none of the batters can play the Dukes moving ball. That's not fair on them, because actually they won't have ever been brought up on, or would have played. Their technique wouldn't have been. It would have been on a ball that doesn't do much, 3 or 4 overs. I just think it's a shame we haven't got. If you go to a Football World Cup, they get given the ball 3 weeks before and they train with it. I just think it's a shame that we don't have a standard ball around the world that we all play with.
I mean, and to use your scenario there, if you've got a beautifully prepared Edgbaston track and the batters all go out there unprepared to take on a Duke's ball when they've been playing with Kookaburras, your test match is over in 1.5 days, isn't it, potentially?
Because they're all playing the ball that goes straight down the middle, and all of a sudden they're nicking off, playing the same shots they've been playing all season. And you could argue that you have people saying, "Oh, you don't get anybody out at Edgbaston this year with a Kookaburra ball." Well, the next championship game we've got a Duke's ball, and I've done no different. So it's, I feel it's a bit unfair on the players, if I'm really honest with you, more than the ground staff, because the ground staff are just trying to adapt and move around.
Well, do you at the start of this season, when you knew the first 2 rounds were going to be with a Kookaburra ball, I'm assuming you didn't make any difference how you prepared your pitch. You just prepared the best pitch you could. Yeah,
that'd be the same. So I try and make no surprises, that I make every pitch the same, so that when I get to my test pitch, it's the same as all my championship pitches. So if my championship pitches have been very good, my test pitch will be very good in essence. So I just look at it now and think, if I'd done that all year with a Kookaburra and everybody's going, 500 plays, 500 plays, 400, you can't get everybody out. We go to the Dukes, 150 plays, 150 plays. I'd like to know their end goal. I am a believer, contrary to belief, actually, probably a bit of a, shouldn't say it really, but I do believe. I believe that if Team England want to set a bar, they want pitches that do a little bit, or I think they should write that at the start of the year, personally, because I think if we're going up to play in India and they want batters to get used to spinning pitches to go to India with and get spinners into the game more, and we're all told as ground staff around the country, and pitches can turn this year. Somerset had it a few years ago, and there were some great games. And everybody, there was massive fuss about it. All turning at Somerset, it's only 3 days, but actually Jack Leach got picked for England on the back of it. And if we go and play in other countries, and if you're going to go and play in Australia on flat batting pitches that have just got a bit of bounce, can we have that this year, please? That's what we'd ideally like. Okay, all ground staff will go away and try and do the best they can to deliver that. We're going to use a Kookaburra ball. So everybody knows at the start of the season, the supporters, the media, there's no agendas or anything. Rob Key spoke to it as a group collectively, has been very good. Hasn't for a while, but you know what I mean? If you had that, we're using the Kookaburra ball, I feel that the problem is nobody ever really comes out and says why we're doing it. I don't know why we're using the Kookaburra ball for 2 rounds at the start and 2 rounds in the middle. I would argue I don't think it's overly fair either, because Warwickshire play Worcestershire twice with a Kookaburra ball. I personally would have brought the Kookaburra ball, and if you're going to do it and you play everybody once with a Kookaburra ball, I believe now, if I'm honest, I've been watching the Kookaburra ball. If you're going to bring it in, it should be 5 days of cricket. I think you'd have had results at every ground if you'd have had 5 days. And then you are mirroring test matches, setting declarations and stuff. Again, it wouldn't be for everybody, and I'm not saying what I'm saying is actually right. It's more observational, really. You should always have a reason why you're doing things. You shouldn't just, we're going to try this year, then let's try something else. I mean, I think going back to 1990, they brought the readers out without hardly had a seam on it. I think people got 2 runs before the middle of the year. So, but also I think there's an argument that you could involve members of clubs and umpires and everything. Everybody has a little bit of a say at the end of a season. And you don't have to have it could be this year. What's everybody, little questionnaire goes out, and people would fill it in because they'd feel part of it. What's your thoughts on the Kookaburra ball? What's your overall opinion of watching the games? Because the members that come and watch county cricket are very knowledgeable and understand the game a lot. So actually involve them, embrace them. I think you'd get a real collective opinion of the game, and I think everybody'd push together to get the right way going forward. And that's my opinion. Is we very rarely get asked our opinions of what's happened in the season at the end of a season by anybody.
Something you said a little bit ago just struck a chord, because I've often said that you go to India, you know it's going to be a certain type of pitch. Australia the same. In England, I don't sometimes think we play to our strengths enough and kind of local knowledge and what have you. And do England sit you down as a test match outfit at the start of the season? So we want, because I heard somebody say to me at the start of last summer, Rob Keys asked for a load of flat tracks for the Australians. We're going to basically tonk them and basball them into submission. Is that not the case then?
No, I've never been asked in all my years as head groundsman here, hand on heart, never been asked. Only year has ever been mentioned was 2005 Ashes. Alistair Cook, it was on an interview at the end of the lost at Lords, I think, 15. And he said, I want a good old-fashioned English cricket wicket at Edgbaston. Yeah. And I sitting there with the missus saying, I'm not sure what that is. I guess he meant a little bit of nibble early on and flattened out to be a batter. And that was my idea. I asked the question and it was just a good pitch. That was all he meant by it. They generally ask for good pitches. There's never been any directives in my time here. I've never been asked for a certain type of pitch. Occasionally when you play in India, you get the impression they probably don't want it to turn, but they never ever say that. That's just you think, well, they're not going to want it to turn. Last year I did read that myself, what you've just said. I think they were hoping that Leach was obviously going to be fit, and if you remember rightly, ours was a flat batter, but then Leach got injured. Yeah. Before the series started. I think Mo played here. But no, we don't ever get directives as such. Do I think we should? It's a tricky. I'll be honest. I find, I'll be honest. I've been really lucky. I've worked with since 2012. So whichever coaches that comes into that, every England coach and captain, on a personal note, has been very, very good with me at Edgbaston. Very professional, really decent. And our two we've got at the moment, Ben Stokes and Brendan McCullum, are probably up there with two of the best I've worked with. Honest, decent, genuine, want the best for the team, best for the game, and are a pleasure to work with. On my opinion, and that's from my opinion here. And I can't speak any more than that, really.
I'm just thinking about because kind of the stereotypical view on cricket, India would want turners so their spinners could bowl England out for 33. Australia would want fast, bouncy tracks so we could kind of like get that Mitchell Johnson kind of spells where England's heads get knocked off. I'm not quite sure what England's strengths are because we're kind of fairly good all round, aren't we? There's no one pitch that would necessarily advantage England particularly. Just good batting tracks, good cricket wickets.
I think you've probably hit the nail on the head. What's happened to county cricket, actually? I think the problem you've got is many, many years ago when I was first starting, so I probably wasn't paying any attention to it other than turning up for work and earning my money and going home, really. They tried to make all pitches in the UK very similar. The best pitches in the country at the time were potentially the Oval, really, Harry Brind and that. And I think it was a TCCB, wasn't it then, not the ECB. Wanted all pitches similar, I think, if I can remember rightly, to the Oval. They were the best around. They were really good. And I think what's happened is you've lost a little bit, and I quite liked it, that little bit of, we're going to Taunton for this. This will be, Taunton was always an absolute run fest. You're going to Old Trafford, bouncy,
Northants would spin.
Yeah. And actually, there's actually something quite endearing about that, and something quite unique. And different groundsmen around the country were all different, and then we've all come together to deliver the one-day pitches that are literally, there's nothing between them. You're talking to win the one day award, you get marked out of 6. I think the last few winners have all got 6 out of 6 for a calendar year between 10 and 11 games. That they're so good, but I think there's a bit of something missing there. Like if you come to Edgbaston, you look at one of my pitches, you think, well, yeah, Gaz has done that. That's his kind of pitch. Yeah. You go to Lee's are brilliant. He's what he does at the Oval is an amazing. And his are different to mine. You might go to Grace Road and Andy, who's been there a long time, with a budget like Neil at Derby, a budget that's nothing, produce pitches 1 day and 4 day that compete against any test ground in the country. So you have all these different mixes of people, but because we all get marked the same, you create this sort of, I won't say bland's not the right word, but sterile, or I better not leave a bit of grass on this time, because if I go too far, well, I would argue if I watched the India Test series last time before, and it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and it's turning a bit, and everybody's going, "Oh, it's turning a bit in India." What do? I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and watch it because it's great.
Yeah,
I want to see it. I want to see difference. I want to see a ball turning. And you might argue, well, I don't want to see 120 all out, but do you know what? How great is it to see the spinners in the game, and somebody getting 50s, like someone getting a double 100 type thing, and England coming back into it and working really hard. And actually, if you get the draw or you get the result, it's brilliant. That's great for the game. And the enthusiasm for me is there when I see difference, and I like watching different pitches. I saw somebody post, I think I commented on it on Twitter, they were posting about New Zealand pitch that was green. And I just, don't judge a book by its cover. 350 or 400 for one later, it's different. And that's what I like about the game. On any given day, and I think it'd be nice if we went back to that a little bit. I know it's a bit, I'm showing my age a little bit, I suppose, but I think it'd be nice if you did go to Taunton and it turned, or you did go to Northampton and it turned. You did go to Hampshire and it seemed around, or Lords, and it just did a bit early on in the morning. And their characteristics of the ground and I think that would be a better.
No, I totally agree. Absolutely, totally agree. Gary, I'm not going to keep you any longer because you've been on for ages, and I know you're a busy man at this time of year. You've got Notts coming to Edgbaston this week. What have you got? Just a final question. What have you got to do over the next sort of 2 days to get that ready? Then, what's your calendar like?
We're pretty close to being ready, actually, which is good. The weather's changing a little bit Friday, unfortunately. It's overcast today. We try and get ahead of ourselves. We've got a second team game now till tomorrow. Got one clear day. So tomorrow's going to be getting this match ready for the seconds. And then tomorrow's basically, Thursday will be sight screens, field. Everything's a little bit dormant at the moment. With the weather being a bit colder and there's no real grass isn't really vigored into life yet. It's probably a bit like me on a cold Sunday morning. So we've got a fair bit to do. We're sort of primed and ready to go for Notts. We've marked lunchtime today. It's pretty much there. We'll probably cut it about 8 mil roughly on Wednesday, Thursday. Hover cover will go on it tonight for the first time. It's been sheeted up till then. And then we'll be sort of getting ourselves ready with the weather coming in on Friday. So, busy.
I said that was my last question. I'm going to ask you one more. When you became started working in cricket on the grounds and stuff, were you a big cricket fan, and are you more of a cricket fan now than you were then?
I played cricket then, and I watched a little bit of cricket. Always watched a test match, and then went and played cricket down the park more than, you'd watch the first few overs of a test match on BBC, and you'd be down the park after. I'm more of a cricket fan now. Yeah. I think I like the game a bit more. Watch it a lot. I'm interested in the pitches, and I didn't ever envisage myself being as passionate about a job than I've become, if that makes sense. I enjoy the game. I think I owe the game a lot because the game's given me a lot. But I also want to improve the game as well, as in, when people say, what's your thoughts? Watching a lot and being around a lot, gives you an insight to see it, really. But yeah, I'm a fan now. Warwickshire feels like home, which is weird. I'm a lad from Leicestershire, moved to Notts and then went to Warwickshire. But technically, my mum's got a CV postcode, so that's a Coventry postcode, even though I live in Leicestershire. So Warwickshire feels like home and is just a really good club to work at, and surrounded by some very, very good people. Makes you sort of want to take it on board even more, really.
Well, it's been a pleasure to have you back on the Cricket Badger podcast, Gary. Good luck for Friday. Good luck for the rest of the season. Hopefully everything goes swimmingly. Hopefully the rain stops, and hopefully you have a fantastic summer.
Lovely. You take care. Speak to you soon.
And you. And thank you out there, everybody, for watching Cricket Badger podcast. We'll be back soon. Thanks to Gary. Thanks to everybody tuned in. And we will see you again soon on the Cricket Badger podcast. Cheers, everybody.